All right, we are in Chapter 6 of Zach's Programming with Visual Basic. This is exercise 12, again in Chapter 6. So Chapter 6 is all about subprocedures and functions, but this particular exercise is more focused on the combo boxes, which we learned that in the apply the concepts lessons. So I have a brand new application here. I'm going to take this and move it off to the side on my other screen. This is my new Windows Form app. And I don't have my toolbox. So let's go to View, Toolbox. Get that going. All right, and we'll pin it, and there we go. Minimize these things. I don't need any of this. All right, this is what I'm working with. So my form itself, I'm going to rename it main form. FRM main. Before I forget, we're going to throw some, actually I don't want to do the button yet. I want to do the font first. All right, change the font, and now my form is huge, so let's make it a little bit more reasonable size. Now give me some buttons. Okay, so this is going to be BTN calculate. And exit. And I'm going to take both of these and make them a little bit taller and a little bit wider. So they're the same size. And the reason I added these buttons right away is because now when I'm working with my form, I can change the accept button to BTN calculate, excuse me, the cancel button to BTN exit. My form to open in the middle of the screen. And I do not want you to be able to maximize this form. And I named this FRM main. So let's make sure that our project starts off on FRM main. Looks good. Middle of the screen. Oh, we got to change that form 1. We'll do that right now. It's not form 1. It is Wallpaper Warehouse. Right. So we need 4 combo boxes, 4 labels, and then 2 more labels kind of for our output. So lots of labels on this one. This is going to be length in feet. And just copy paste this. The next label that I need is width, also in feet. Copy paste this. Then I need height in feet. So these are the dimensions of the room. And then we have roll coverage in square feet. All right, and now I need some combo boxes. So I'm going to drop down and throw a combo box here. I learned that the prefix for combo box is CBO. I honestly don't know what Zach uses, but I use CBO. So I'm going to do CBO length. And length should display the numbers 8 through 30, I guess with an increment of 1. It doesn't say otherwise. And so you could, click on the smart tag, go to edit items, and then write in there 8, 9, 10, 11, right? But we don't want to do that. That's a lot of typing in there. We know we can use a loop to populate this, so we're going to do that in a moment. I am going to change, however, the guess ensure the drop-down style is drop-down, and it is. Okay, so there's CBO length. Give me another one. Call this one CBO width. Another one. Oops. Did not mean to double click that. CBO height. And one more. I'm going to have CBO, and we'll call this coverage. All right, so let's see, let me make this a little bit wider. And then I'm going to take these 4 combo boxes and I'm going to make them equal spacing. So hit this little button here with the 2 vertical lines. If you hover over it, it says make horizontal spacing equal. So these are all spaced out equally. And while we have that, let's just make sure that they're aligned like on the bottom. Okay, and then length in feet is lined up on the left-hand side there. Width is lined up, height lined up, roll coverage. That looks pretty good. I'm going to take all this stuff. No title on this form, so it just gets shoved up like so. My buttons, we'll put them right there. And then my form itself, make it look like this. So this is our form. When I run it, here's what we have. My drop downs don't have anything in it. We need to populate those. The other thing we need to do, however, is make sure that when I hit Alt-H, I need my focus to be over here. And right now my focus is over here on length. Okay, and that's because of my tab index. So let's go to View, Tab Order, and I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, like that. So now, when I Alt-H, my focus gets put in here. Alt-R, my focus gets put over here. All right. All right, so the first thing I want to do is populate these drop-down boxes. And I want those to be populated when the form loads. So I'm going to double-click anywhere in my form. And I'm going to say populate drop-downs. And I know my start and end numbers that I want to run with, so I'm going to use a for next loop. And I've told my class this, but if you're not in my class and you're watching on YouTube, I am terrible with loops. I'm actually pretty terrible with syntax because I don't need to remember this stuff. Okay, what I do remember is Control KX gives me the snippet menu. So I'm holding down Control, I hit KX, and it gives me the snippet menu. Or you could right click and go to Snippet, Insert Snippet. All right, I want a code pattern, so I'm using the arrows to get the code patterns. I want conditionals and loops, and I want a for next loop. All right, and then I hit escape to get rid of that ugly highlighting. And I'm going to say for I as integer, and normally our variable names would be very descriptive, except in loops, we can just use I. And I want this to go from 8 to 30. And what's implied here is step 1. All right, if you don't provide a step in your loop, step 1 is implied. And then in the combo box length, which is my first combo box, I'm going to look at the items collection and I'm going to add to it I, and let's test this out. On this, my length, here we go, 8 to 30. All right. So that was done. That's the length drop down. I'm just reading this real quick here. Okay, we're going to have some selected numbers in a moment, but right now we don't have to worry about that. I'm going to select these lines, hit Control D for duplicate, and also from 8 to 30, I'm going to populate CBO width, and then one more time, 8 to 30, I'm going to populate CBO height. And one more time, but this time for the roll coverage, I'm going 30 to 40. And I do need the step because I need the step 0.5. And this would probably throw an error. Yep. So it's throwing an error because we're trying to step 0.5 in an integer. So this particular I has to be a double. Now we can step 5. And we're going to add this to CBO coverage. Length, width, height, I'll go 8 to 30, step 1. Coverage goes 30 to 40, step 0.5. So when I run this, that's 8 to 30, that's 8 to 30, that's 8 to 30, and my coverage is 30 to 40. And you know what? Let's do this. Let's take this. We're going to add I to string N1. Let's see here. This way, one more parenthesis there. It shows 30.0, 30.5. All right, I think that's a little bit more uniform of a look. So I took I, which is my counter, I converted it to a string, and I said make that a number with 1 unit of precision, or 1 decimal place. All right, and then finally, these have some pre-selected values. So the selected item for CBO length is going to be 10, and this is coming from text. For width, CBO width dot selected item, and make sure you're doing selected item and not index. Index is the place in the collection, whereas item is the value of the number. So 10 by 10, and then CBO height dot selected item is equal to 8. And finally, CBO coverage dot selected item is equal to, and this time, if I say 37, I wonder if that's going to work. Let's check it out. I don't think that's going to work, but we'll see. Maybe it'll surprise me. Yeah, that did not work, but these did. So these worked, the 10, 10, and 8, because in our loops, we're working with an integer and we're adding that integer to the collection. Versus for this number here, I converted that to a string, right? So the integer 37 does not appear in this collection of strings. So I need this to say 37.0. And there it is. Okay, and that's selected. Well, 8's the first one, but it's selected in the location in the dropdown. All right, I keep clicking on that edit, exit button. So let's actually code this. E.close. Okay, so reviewing the assignment. We have 4 combo boxes, 8 through 30 in length, width, and height, 30 through 40 increment of 5 in the roll coverage, 10, 10, 8, 37 should be displayed there. Calculate button should display the number of single rolls of wallpaper required to cover a room. Use a sub procedure to make the calculation. I don't agree with that, but okay. Number of single rolls should be displayed as an integer, so we need to round up all the time. Number of rolls should be cleared. All right, let's just take care of part B. So when you hit calculate, I'm going to need a variable to store the square feet or the area of the walls of the room. And then I need to calculate the square feet of, say, side 1 of the room. And then double that for the other side, or add it again, whatever. And then calculate the square feet of side 2 of the room, or maybe that's side 3, and then add that again for the full square footage of the room. I'm going to divide that by coverage to get actual rolls of paper needed. Round up, show that in the label. So a variable to hold the square feet, the area of the rooms of the walls. I'm going to say dim, and this is going to be an integer because we're just multiplying integers together. So I'm just going to call it int area. All right, so we need to get the length, width, and height from those combo boxes, right? So those are all going to be integers. So I'm going to say dim int length as integer. And how we're going to get this is by doing integer.try parse on it. We're going to look at the combo box, CBO length. And let's start by using selected item and convert that to a string and put it back into int length. Okay, and I'm just going to do a quick message box.show, and I'm going to say length ampersand int length dot to string, and just call this message box debugging. That's all it's going to do. So just so we can see what the length is, I can choose 17 for the length, hit calculate, length is 17. I can choose 10, length is 10. But remember, a combo box, I can type in here 6. All right. So, and it broke right away. So what happened? Well, let's also show you this. Not only can I just type in 6, but I could put in Harper, which is my dog's name, and it also breaks. So we have to do a couple things here. First of all, we need to make sure that we are only allowing for numbers in these combo boxes. And this combo box, the roll coverage is a little different because you can use decimals. But for these first 3, we've done this before. We're going to run an event handler on key press, and I'm going to say numbers only and hit enter. All right, and then I can say if e.keychar is greater than or equal to 0, and also e.keychar is less than or equal to 9, then do nothing. Otherwise, e.handled is equal to true. So say, don't worry, we've taken care of this. You don't have to listen to what the user did, pretty much. So now when I run this in my length, I cannot type Harper, H-A-R-V-R, right? But I can put in the number 6, right? The problem with that, 6, 7, 8, I can't hit the backspace key. We do want to allow for the backspace key. So I'm going to put an else if in here, e.keychar is equal to control cars dot back, then do nothing. All right, so that's numbers only. Run this one more time just to show you that I can type in 6, 7, 8, and I can hit the backspace key. But still, when I hit calculate, this threw an error because CBO.selected item, there was no selected item. I typed in a number instead of you selecting it from the dropdown. Okay, so what we want to look at is the text property of the combo box, not the selected item. So we're looking at what the value in here is. I can hit 678 and hit calculate, and it tells me the length is 678. So that's why we want to use the text property of the combo box, and we want to make sure that what is being entered is valid. So let's do the same thing for roll coverage on key press. There's key press. I'm just going to double click here. I didn't need to name this anything special because this is only handling the one object, the only CBO coverage, whereas this one handled 3 of them. So I wanted to give it a more generic name. And it's pretty much the same code, right? Except that we also allow for the decimal point. So on coverage, we allow for 0 through 9 and the decimal point. So when I run this, I can say my coverage is 15.67 if I wanted to. That's perfectly valid, but I cannot type in my dog's name, right? Okay, so we can, we'll leave that message box at show, and I'll just comment it out just so I have it. I need to do the same thing with, I have length, I need width. That's going to come from CBO width. And for height, and for coverage, but remember coverage could be, could have a decimal point. So we're going to make that a double coverage as double. So we need to double.try parse on CBO coverage, put that back into DBL coverage. Whew, okay, that's a lot. All right, so I need to calculate room area, we'll say that. And to calculate the room area, I need to send it the length, the width, the height, and int area as well. It's going to be put back into this variable. And because I want to edit this variable, I'm going to send it by reference, which we will talk about again momentarily. Notice that this sub procedure does not exist. So I get the red squiggly underneath it. I have 2 options. I can actually write this out, right? So under here, I can write private sub, and I can write all this out. Or I can click on the light bulb and say, generate this method for me. And it shows me what it's going to generate. And that's what I want. I want you to generate that method for me for calculate room area. And it sends all these, sets up all these parameters. But remember, I want the area itself to be set up by reference so that when I edit the area down here, it's actually modifying the value here. Length, width, and height, it makes copies of the values and sends those values in. Okay, these are by value by default. Okay, I'm going to put these in here. You don't have to. And Visual Studio might even take them away from me. Notice how they like dimmed out. And oh, that's unnecessary and can be removed. Sure. Go ahead and remove it. Okay. But just know that those first 3 get copies of the values going in. Int area is by reference. So this is pointing back to this actual spot right here in the code. All right. So that means when I modify int area in this sub procedure, it's modifying this variable. If I were to modify, int length, and I add like 12 to the length, it doesn't do anything to this int length up here. Because if length was 10, a copy of the value of that variable, so 10 gets sent in. And we can do whatever we want to it here, but it's a copy of it, so it doesn't make a change. Whereas area is being sent by reference, where we have a pointer back to this spot in memory. All right, so what are we going to do with that? I'm going to say I have wall 1, 2, 3, and 4. I've got 4 walls to my room. And with wall 1, I'm going to say int area plus equals int length times int height. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing for wall 2. So to do that really quickly, I hit Control D to duplicate, and then holding down the Alt key, I hit the Alt key down, and then just give myself an extra blank line. All right, wall 3 is going to be int width times int height. and then I need to do that again. Okay, so our area at this point has been updated to calculating the room area. And if we wanted to see that, let's just, you know what, I didn't put in, go back to my toolbox. I need a label here for, I forgot this one. Single rolls. This is my output label. So that is not auto-sized. We'll set the background color to that yellow like we did earlier on in the semester. Border style fixed single. Make it a little bit bigger. There we go. Okay. Just want to store. All right, that's where the final answer is going to go. But I'm going to take this. I'm going to call this LBL single rolls. That's eventually what it's going to be. And let's just put LBL single rolls dot text is equal to int area dot toString. Okay. So now when I run this, if my room is 10 by 10 by 8, that means a single wall is 80 square feet. I have 4 of those walls. This should be 320, and it is. Okay, so I know my area is being calculated correctly. Divide this up to get the number of rolls of paper needed. So I'm going to say dim DBL rolls needed as double, and DBL rolls needed is equal to int area divided by DBL coverage. Okay. And I'm going to skip this roundup for a second, and then we want to show this in the label. So go back to LBL single rolls.text is equal to DBL rolls needed toString. When I run this now, I hit calculate, I need 8.64864 rolls of paper. And you can't go to the store and buy 8.64 rolls of paper. So we need to round this up. And we don't need to just round. Okay, previously we've done we've done rounding before, right? We used math.round. But we don't want to round. We want to round up. And if you look up, probably right now, you would see a ceiling. So we're going to use the ceiling function on DBL rolls needed. Ceiling will always round up, and opposite of that, floor will always round down. So now when we run this, it tells me there's 9 rolls needed. If I say that I have 10-foot walls, we need 11 rolls. If it's really 23 by 14, we need 20 rolls. Okay, so it's always rounding up. Okay, the number of rolls should be cleared when a change is made to a combo box. So on any of these combo boxes, just the combo boxes, there we go. I'm looking for text changed. And I'm going to say clear labels. I made it plural just because normally we have multiple labels. But even though we only have one thing to run right now. And finally save and run this solution. And what they're saying is if we're looking at 14 by 20 by 8 with 38.5 feet of coverage, we should need 15 rolls of paper, and we do. All right, and notice I did this by typing these numbers in, okay? I didn't even use the drop-down, although I totally could have. Both work, either using the drop-down or typing it in. So that is everything, I believe, for Wallpaper Warehouse.